This video is brought to you by Skillshare. You know, I never thought I'd see Disney make a movie about writing smut. Like, damn. Jokes aside though, Pixar's latest film, Turning Red, is honestly quite radical in its depiction of teenage puberty and burgeoning sexuality, because it's depicted so honestly and truly in a way that rarely gets shown on screen. And it's made even more surprising given the fact that it was put out by Disney. Oh, it's over here. Thought it was here. Disney of all people. That's the Disney thing right here. And I swear to you, all these things will become relevant as we get further into the video, including this one. But the reason that it's surprising that Disney put out Turning Red is that it's the studio most known for its squeaky clean, family-friendly image. In fact, it's that same exact family-friendly reputation of the studio that caused the Pixar movie to receive a lot of backlash from a particular segment of parents and, of course, some of our favorite talk show hosts.
Just this obnoxious kid, disobedient to her parents. It doesn't actually have a message. Of course, you can portray that kind of stuff in kids' movies. It's been portrayed many times before. But the question is, what's the message at the end of it? And there is no, from what I've been told, there is no message at the end of this telling kids, oh, okay, well, actually, you should respect, your family is important. You should respect your parents. That's not the message at the end. In fact, the message is quite the opposite of that.
Matt Walsh, I missed you and your lumberjack lost in an art studio vibe, my friend. Okay, sorry, that was a low blow on Matt Walsh. I usually don't go for that sort of thing, but I just missed the out of focus shelves behind him and it kind of got to me. But seriously, many conservative and Christian parental groups have called out the film Turning Red, not only for its sexual content, but even further for its messages about pushing back against parental authority, another common occurrence during teenage years that's depicted in the film. And I find this to be a particularly interesting confluence of discussions, especially given our current discourse in areas like Florida with its Don't Say Gay bill, about what is and isn't appropriate for kids to be exposed to, and how Turning Red, and its seeming distance to Disney's typical squeaky clean image, actually reflects a lot about how we think and conceive about children's lives and art that is directed at kids. So for today's video, I want to take this opportunity that Turning Red is giving us to dive into these different discussions and how they all influence and direct each other. But before we get to that, I just want to quick remind everyone to subscribe to my channel. Here on Jessiegender, we do discussions of social and political issues through nerddom and geek and pop culture topics like Pixar movies. So I hope that you will enjoy this. And also, I'm a big Star Trek fan, so if you like Star Trek stuff, that's on this channel too. And also, I just wish to say I've got a quick announcement at the end of this video about some cool upcoming stuff on this channel, so please stick around after this video if you can. But with that out of the way, let's talk about how Turning Red honestly displays pubescent sexuality, where it sits within Disney's image, and how the negative reaction to the film actually illuminates how children are both conceived of as well as wielded in political discourse. But before, whoa, God, okay, that didn't work out well. But before we get started, let's talk about this video's sponsor, Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of inspiring classes for creators where you can explore new skills, learn how to better approach your passions, and build your creativity. Now, if you've been following my channel for a bit, you know that I actually got really into one of Skillshare's classes by a personal hero of mine, Roxanne Gay, called Creative Writing, Crafting Personal Essays with Impact. It was an amazing class that has really helped me hone my writing on this channel, being able to mix my more personal thoughts and experiences with more impactful political and social issues as well. But also, I followed that class up with another amazing class by Susan Orlean, a staff writer for The New Yorker, called Creative Nonfiction, Write Truth with Style, that has helped build upon Gay's class by helping me flourish more in my writing about nonfiction topics, adding a little bit of panache and pizzazz to my writing. So if you've liked some of the improvements that you've seen in my writing over these past few months, that's in large part thanks to these classes and Skillshare. Seriously, even if they weren't sponsoring me, I would say that Skillshare is a great place for you to be able to hone and craft a lot of your skills. Because even if the classes that I mentioned aren't your jam, Skillshare will have a class for you. It's curated specifically for learning, meaning there are no ads and there are always new premium classes being offered, so you can stay focused and keep finding new ways to expand your creativity. And the first 1,000 of my subscribers to click the link in the description will get a 1-month free trial of premium membership at Skillshare. So thank you so much to Skillshare for sponsoring this video, and with that being said, let's jump back into the turning red of it all. Don't know why I started turning into a robot here. Anyways, let's get into it. So one of the ways that Turning Red is so radical is that it depicts sexuality in a refreshingly honest, true, and most importantly, not insinuated but actually depicted way. The movie follows a 13-year-old Chinese-Canadian girl named May, who hangs out with her friends and is fairly confident, but is also incredibly controlled by her overbearing mother.
Mamie, there you are. Hey, Mom. You're 10 minutes late. What happened? Are you hurt? Are you hungry? How was school today?
However, despite this, early in the film, we get what is, in my opinion, the best scene in the entire movie. In one of the film's earliest scenes, May's friends stop and lust after the 17-year-old corner store clerk, Devin. However, while May takes part in this, she does seem to be the least interested of the four in Devin.
It's very soft.
Whoa. Can I have some?
Yeah, Abby, hook his sister up. Ew, he looks like a hobo.
That is until later on when she's at home diligently working on her math homework and she begins to doodle pictures of Devin. And she seems initially surprised by the picture, but also intrinsically drawn to it, if you pardon the pun. And that's when we get this wonderful sequence. That face right there, that animation, like, all of it is beautiful. I adore it because it feels so honest, right? Puberty, for those of us who feel physical attraction, is often the first time in our lives where we start to realize our attraction to other people. Yet we often don't have the words or experience to be able to understand what our feelings are. We just start looking at people and realize that we're having some sort of reaction to it, and that it feels kind of nice, but we have no idea what's actually going on. It feels good, but it's confusing. It's different, but alluring as well. So May's confusion depicted in the film, yet sudden intense desire to follow where that track leads, feels so real and relatable. Even more interestingly, she expresses her attraction not really with Devin, but a fish boy merman representation of Devin. It's a fictional character version of him, something kind of safe to objectify and place our attentions into rather than an actual person. It decomplicates the matter and allows us just to focus on what we're kind of feeling. And this is a true experience for many kids experiencing sexual attraction for the first time, as fictional characters give us a way to understand our own sexual desires. For me, for example, as a young kid discovering my own bisexuality, I got really attracted to both Hayden Panettiere in Heroes, Save the Cheerleader, Save the World, indeed, my friends, as well as Trunks from Dragon Ball Z. Look, being honest, I am still looking for the sexual thrill that I found when my boy Trunks turned into a Super Saiyan and pulled out that fucking sword. And that's the reason that I have this Trunks statue here. You were like, how is Jessie gonna make Turning Red about Trunks? Well, I did it. I did it. I can do anything. I am a master wordsmith. I can do this. This is my Horgan, everybody. Okay, I might have getting a little overzealous there. Trunks does that to me. Okay, buddy. Yet, this growing sense of our attraction to others' bodies often comes coupled with a sense of horror at the changes happening to our own body. In the film, whenever May has strong emotions, she turns into a giant panda. And the first few times that it happens, she's mortified by what her body looks like now.
I'm a gross red monster! Stop talking!
And the film early on makes a pretty direct correlation between May's transformation and another typical event in assigned female at birth kids' puberties, menstruation. Why did I say it like that? Menstruation. It's menstruation. It's menstruation. We're talking about a period.
Is it that? Did the red peony bloom?
No! Maybe?
But it's too soon. Don't worry, Maymay. I'll get everything you need. Mommy's here. Jin, Jin, it's happening!
During puberty, kids' experiences with our bodies often becomes distancing, with a lot of changes happening all at once. For me in particular, I've spoken numerous times about how I, as a trans person who experienced a lot of gender dysphoria, was mortified by how my own body shifted around in ways that I didn't associate with. But while trans people may feel an extreme version of this at times, it's actually fairly typical for anyone going through puberty. It's a pretty body horror-esque situation for most kids. And all of that feels so incredibly portrayed by Turning Red. Now, the turning into a giant red fox isn't necessarily a one-to-one for menstruation, as the metaphor is used for many more things throughout the film, but it's also generally used as sort of an idea for generalized experiences with puberty.
Now take a break and help me appreciate some boys. Okay.
Hey, what's up?
Yet, looking at it in that lens, there's actually still more to understand with the movie's depiction of experiences with puberty. Because despite May's confusion surrounding the entire situation, she also has this implicit understanding that her feelings would be seen as inappropriate, both by her parents and bye. Feels appropriate for this movie. Anyways, by society at large. When May's mother walks in on her drawing her fish boy fantasies, May quickly hides them, desperately hoping and failing that her mother won't discover her drawings. And more on her mother's reaction to the drawings in just a little bit. But already, May seems to know her attractions won't be approved of. And it comes out of her sense of knowing that her interests aren't really totally approved of by her mother specifically. May, throughout most of the early parts of the film, painstakingly aligns herself with her mother's interests.
You should have listened to his mother and married Ling Yi.
Totally. Xiu Yi is so two-faced.
She's just using him to get to the throne.
But her mother rarely shows interest in what May's doing.
A worldwide pop sensation Town will be kicking off their North American tour. Tickets on sale now.
Oh my gosh.
Who are these hip-hoppers? And why are they called Town if there are 5 of them?
I don't know. Some of the kids at school like them.
You mean Miriam? That girl is odd.
Dinner's ready.
May also regularly turns down time spent with her friends because she knows her mother would prefer May to be nearby and be doing stuff with her. It's because May's life is intensely controlled by her mother. May's mother is a form of helicopter parent, hyper-controlling May's life. This hypervigilance in the film, as we later learn, is because May's mom is worried about the appearance of May's red panda.
Why didn't you warn me?
I thought I had more time. You're just a child. I thought if I watched you like a hawk, I'd see the signs and be able to prepare.
This controlling nature comes out of a real concern for her child, and what May may face once the real world begins to have its inevitable effect on her. But by limiting May's access to her own interests or experiences, it leaves May incapable of handling situations when they arise that May's mother can't anticipate. Even further, it embarrasses and distances her from her own childhood friends because May's mom is so embarrassingly over the top and protective. Yet it also leaves May unable to handle situations when they arise that May's mom can't help her with. May nearly kills herself and several others and destroys half the town in her reaction to changing into the fox. Kids from hyper-controlling parents often experience much the same thing, though obviously on a less heightened level, but they're sometimes unable to really deal with situations because they haven't been given the chance to test their own sense of self and lack the confidence needed to handle situations on their own. All kids are going to experience new situations. That's part of, being a human being. We experience new things, especially as a kid who hasn't been exposed to them. But how we're able to handle these new experiences comes out of our own confidence and awareness of who we are, something that May has been denied for most of her life. May has been asked consistently to defer to authority rather than trust and have confidence in herself. Further though, May's mother quickly disapproves of May's similar crushes and interests in the boy band.
Look at those glittery delinquents with their gyrations. Why on earth do you want to go so badly?
To which May overtly agrees with her mother on.
Okay, well, thanks for listening. Good night.
Despite clearly adoring Town, not really for their music, but because of her crush on them. Not only does this again relate to May's lack of existence outside of her mother's control, as well as her knowing that her sexual interests would be disapproved of, but also relates to how young girls' interests, especially in a sexual context, are often derided. While young boys going through puberty lusting after girls is often accepted and normalized, and even encouraged to a degree that objectifies young girls as being only there for boys' displays, young girls' similar interests, though, are often maligned. Take, for example, how often teenage girls' interest in the hotness of Robert Pattinson in the Twilight movies was made fun of during the early 2000s. Well, how the tables have turned on that one, cause y'all seem to be fine with Pattinson now that he's beaten up Paul Dano. But like Fortown in Turning Red, girls' interest in boy bands during the time of the early 2000s, and even today, was also similarly looked down upon as well. Hell, fanfiction communities, which are predominantly made up of women, are often derided as well, despite there being a lot of good fanfiction out there. And one of the biggest segments on fanfiction is often sexual, pairing fictional characters off with each other, and many young girls use fanfiction in order to explore their interest in sex. I mean, for me, while my own journey with gender and sexuality is very complicated, when I was a kid, I wrote Star Trek Enterprise, Archer, and Trip /fiction all the fucking time. Which, to be fair, I kind of regret, because we all know the sexual tension was really between Trip and Reed.
Whatever's in that bottle you broke got all over me. Sticks to high heaven. It's not like I had a choice. We needed something to cut through those ropes.
Like, what the fuck was I thinking? God, kids are stupid. Furthermore, other normal parts of girls' puberties are also often derided, like menstruation. Menstruation is often seen as gross and icky, not something to be discussed in public or outside of hushed tones, despite it being something that around 50% of people experience. It is a normal body function, and yet it's often seen as gross or nasty, making girls feel embarrassed or less than because of it. And most of our pop culture films reflect this relationship to menstruation and girls' interests.
Are you dancing with some chick in there?
Yeah, so?
It's blood. Dude, it's blood, dude.
But why would I be bleeding? Why the fuck would I be... Dude, why would there be blood? Oh, fuck. Oh, my God. Oh, shit.
Yet, Turning Red itself is actually rather open about this entire experience, using it as a source of comedy, yes, but never looking down upon it or judging May for it. I was honestly shocked when I saw a Pixar movie openly mention menstruation and even show pads. Yet, pads and menstruation are part of girls and assigned female at birth folks' experience in life. But the reason I was so shocked was not because I was grossed out by it, but because the film was made by Disney. As I mentioned before, Disney has an image as a family-friendly company, which means that it often eschews any overt references to sex and sexuality in pretty much all of its media, but most especially in its animation, which is seen as more directly aimed at kids. The reason that Disney cultivated this squeaky clean image is that it aimed to try to sell tickets to the broadest possible audience. And this worked well throughout most of Disney's history, with its brand going popular during the era of the Hays Code, which was created after a Christian right-led moral panic about the film industry. And during the time that the code was most heavily utilized, it heavily clamped down on any displays of sex, sexuality, homosexuality, among many other things, including interracial relationships. Because it kind of mixed it in with the racism. Woo! Yay! But because Disney grew out of this area and became immensely popular as a result, even during and after the fact, Disney's movies mainly stuck to white, mostly sexless, monogamous, and heterosexual storylines and depictions throughout its work in order to not rock the boat, as it were, and thereby garnered its wide audience and popularity. Yet, as my friend James Somerton pointed out in his own video on Disney, which is linked below, this era for Disney continued well beyond the Hays Code. However, by the time that we reach today, there's been a greater call and allowance for more depictions of identities and experiences in our media. In fact, there's been an outcry for it because of this long era of Hollywood not depicting many experiences outside of a straight, white, and monogamous one. And so this outcry is in part what led to Turning Red to be made. It's a film about a Chinese-Canadian girl dealing with burgeoning sexuality, something that would have been considered even more taboo by larger cultural standards even just a few years ago. Yet, as I alluded to earlier, because there's this sort of prurient relationship to a lot of Disney's work, there is a segment of the audience for which Turning Red has been considered controversial. Many reviews of the film from parental groups called it filled with inappropriate things not suitable for kids and awful words too, and really can't believe this is a kids movie, it's filled with inappropriate things not suitable for kids and awful words too. I copied and pasted the same quote in there twice. Here's a couple other ones that are different. However, you also even get videos from Christian and conservative folks like this talking about the film.
I saw multiple things in the movie Turning Red that I, as a parent, am extremely concerned about. We've all got an inner beast, and a lot of us never let it out. But I did. How about you? So it ends with a rhetorical question, an invitation for viewers to consider, What are those natural urges you have? Those things that are kind of wild or crazy? What are those things? And can you let them out more? Can you express those more? Even if they're viewed as being bad, even if you've been taught that they're bad, if your family's taught you that they're bad and that they're dangerous, is there any way that you can express those and have more, pleasure and sense of fulfillment by doing so? At least that's my interpretation of what the main message is of Turning Red.
I want to be clear, I'm not here to vilify those parents or viewers. That's not the goal of this video. Say, look at how stupid they are. Far from it. But I do want to discuss why this reaction is occurring in many of these parents. Because like I said, much of what's depicted in Turning Red feels like a true-to-life portrayal, albeit in a heightened Pixarian way featuring Red Fox metaphors. But it is true to the experience and emotional realities of what kids go through puberty, especially for young assigned female at birth people. But the reaction against the film goes back to what May was feeling in that film, that her feelings of sex were for some reason considered inappropriate, stemming from her seeing her sexuality through her parents' eyes, not her own. Many Christian and conservative groups, especially in the United States, are often incredibly reserved and puritanical when it comes to sex. They teach things like save sex until marriage, or that to even have sexual thoughts are impure. And it creates in kids going through puberty a sense that there is something not only wrong with their body, but wrong with them, even though everything that they're feeling is completely normal. And this is even more placed upon girls who are seen as needing to hide themselves or their bodies to dissuade boys' sexual desires, despite the fact that it should be on boys to control themselves. Yet, this sort of overprotectiveness over children's access to normal parts of sex and sexuality and knowledge about it is often inherent within conservative discussions and spaces around kids. Yet, coming back to many conservatives' negative reaction to the film Turning Red, it's interesting that the issues with sex and sexuality were not the only pushbacks made by groups to the film. The other major issue that many people had with the movie was its message of finding your own voice away from your parents. In fact, as I did research for this video, I found that the greater pushback was less about sex and sexuality and more about how the film was supposedly anti-family because May rebelled against her mother.
The message of rebellion and disrespect towards parents and authority is disgusting. Teaching children this will only lead to a more chaotic society when they grow up.
Turning Red encourages rebellion, discourages the idea that parents are often wise and caring, and seems kinda anti-family. Big whiff from Pixar.
And so we know that is one of the 10 Commandments, which is like one of the core laws of Christianity. Try to honor your mother and your father. But this book strikes at the very heart of that concept, saying that sometimes you can't honor your mother and father. Sometimes you just have to honor yourself. And a lot of people will look at this and say, well, that's a reasonable concept. But the truth is that is actually a Luciferian concept. What that is something from Aleister Crowley, do as thou wilt, which we covered in Third Adam. It's the idea that we're not trying to get you to do what God wants you to do, but we're not trying to get you to do what Satan wants you to do. We're just trying to get you to do what you want to do, which at the very core is a Luciferian concept.
I find it particularly interesting that these two things are linked together in many negative reactions to the film. So let's take a look at that. Turning Red starts off with this sequence.
They're the supreme beings who gave you life, who sweated and sacrificed so much to put a roof over your head, food on your plate, an epic amount of food. The least you can do in return is every single thing they ask. Of course, some people are like, be careful. Honoring your parents sounds great, but if you take it too far, well, you might forget to honor yourself.
This moment hints at the film's themes and messages of finding your own confidence away from your parents. Throughout the film, instigated by her metaphorical puberty of the Red Fox, May constantly begins rebelling against her mother's control, and as a result is able to find her own self-confidence, friendship, and better social circles as a result. She's able to find herself and her relationship to herself. Her puberty, which is helping her come into her own and her own body, is starting to make her understand that she is a person separate from her mother because she's starting to have a different experience from her mother. And as a result of this coming understanding, she begins to push back against what her mother wants her to do because she realizes it's not what she wants to do.
I'm not your little Maymay anymore. I lied, Mom.
What?
It was my idea to hustle the panda. My idea to go to Tyler's party. It was all me. I like boys. I like loud music. I like gyrating. I'm
stands in stark contrast to May's mother herself, who we found out had a similar relationship to her own mother when she went through puberty. And we actually even learned that her puberty, or at least her metaphorical one, was much more violent, even causing her to scratch and scar her own mother during her own Red Fox period. Yet, because of that traumatic moment in her own puberty, May's mom instead decided to not continue to rebel, but removed her red panda from her, aligning herself more with what her mother wanted and chose for her rather than her own terms, bottling her own feelings all up inside and hiding them away, hiding her own sense of self and personality. Eventually though, because of this, at the end of the film, she gets so angry that all of her pent-up emotions become unleashed, and she literally becomes a giant fucking kaiju fox attacking the city. It was not at all where I expected this movie to go, but I'm here for it. I'm always down for kaijus. I'm even the person who liked the second Pacific Rim movie. Like, Johnny Boyega was so gay in that movie, and I freaking loved it. Anyways, however, May and her family are able to calm her mother down, and in the end, May actually accepts her own red fox as part of herself and refuses to get rid of it.
I'm keeping it.
What did she say?
Keeping it? I'm keeping it!
She doesn't reject this metaphorical relationship to her own sex, sexuality, and identity, but comes to integrate it into herself and her own sense of personhood. And even more importantly, because of this, she's able to find an identity separate from her mother, yet also have a greater understanding and relationship to her mother because she now understands her mother by relating to her through her own experiences rather than being subsumed by her mother's. The film isn't anti-family, it's actually pro-family. Yet, the message is about finding oneself through not only sex, but by rebellion and finding one's own identity in relationship, and sometimes rebellion and contrast against someone's own parents and family structure. And this is why many of these groups who react negatively towards the film see this rebellion in the film as inherently anti-family, because it goes against the views of a traditionalist family held up by conservatives and Christian groups.
Exactly these people are doing here in this Disney movie. She is rebelling by embracing the demon spirit that she has inside of her. But then again, this is a Disney movie, and that's basically what all of them are about. Reject what your parents say, reject what's right, go off in the woods and be some sort of witch.
Many conservative and Christian groups uphold this ideal picturesque version of a traditional family, one that is monogamous and patriarchal and quite often white. And any depiction of family outside of that is seen as inherently attacking or against Christian or conservative values. It's why we see so much reaction against homosexuality or things like that. And I've been discussing this in terms of sex, sexuality, and to a limited degree gender. But it also appears in racial ways too, as we see with the increased attacks on things like discussing race in kids' classrooms. Many kids of color will learn about race regardless, but by limiting education about it, it reinforces whiteness as the norm and forces kids of color to feel shame or unsure how to speak about their own bodies. And all of this mixes with the overzealous and puritanical relationship to keeping sex away from children in conservative spaces, because it leads to a sense of desire to control children's access to even being aware of sex or encountering any level of sexual discussion. And this is partially done to help reinforce this traditionalist family idea. For example, sex education training in schools have often been attacked by Christian and conservative movements, demanding abstinence-only training. Yet, abstinence-only training doesn't prevent sex from happening. As we said, it's a normal part of life. What it does though, just like May in the early parts of the film, it just removes children's ability to appropriately handle sex when it comes up. There have been studies after studies that have proven that limiting children's exposure to sex education is not only ineffective, but actually counterintuitive, leading to further harm for children because they're gonna have sex anyways. Abstinence-only training leads to increases in engaging in unsafe sex, increases in sexually transmitted diseases, and increases in teenage pregnancy, among many other things. It all goes to this complex relationship between sex, control, and the need to highlight a traditional monogamous family values within these conservative and Christian spaces, one that often highlights parents as the end-all be-all of authority. For me, for example, I grew up in a fairly Roman Catholic family, and I was told endlessly and repeatedly to never speak out against my mother and father. My grandmother would often call me up to shame me every single time that I said something against my mother at any point, even if it was small or innocuous. Now, for sure, respect is good for a kid to have towards their parents, but parents, conversely, also need to respect children as full human beings. We often tend to think of kids as these pure, angelic, innocent beings, something that is almost in a weird way not human, not the same as every other type of person. Yes, they grow up to be humans, but they're not fully humans. Yet, in reality, kids feel and think just as strongly as adults do. The difference is they just don't have the understanding to be able to fully articulate or comprehend their experiences. Yet, we don't really respect kids as such. Now, to be clear, I'm not advocating that kids be taught about sex right out of the gate, but kids are often more open to learning about many of these things earlier on than we would give them credit for, and should be exposed to them. We'll come back to that in just a second, but pulling back a little bit, many Christian conservative groups will often try to control what kids learn, often obfuscating much needed knowledge. We see that most clearly with something like Florida's Don't Say Gay bill right now, which seeks to remove any discussions of sex or gender issues in elementary schools. But as we discussed, asking questions about gender and sexuality are normal parts of one's development. Now, the Don't Say Gay bill targets K through 3rd grade schools and classrooms, but that is the time when issues of sexuality are beginning to come up. And to be clear, sex and sexuality and our relationship to feeling romantic or interest in other people are different things. And so is our relationship to our own gender. Sex, sexuality, and gender are all different things. And children will develop different relationships to these things at a young age. Children will often play act at dating, for example, or start to recognize their gender identity at a young age, often in relationships to those of other gender identities. Oh, look, there's the girls and there's the boys. They're different from me. Oh, I see them as different things, so I can kind of understand myself in contrast. And this brings too many natural questions to come up. Yet for LGBTQ kids, their questions about how they relate to others and the differences that they start to see are rarely given answers because issues like sexuality is often seen as adult and inappropriate and often should be hidden aside due to this traditionalist family values that many Christian and right-wing groups try to push. And we can see this disparity in how people react to sexuality within different places for kids. For example, we consider it natural and normal for kids to read a story about a prince and a princess getting together, yet children's books featuring two princesses or two princes getting together have often been actively vilified or banned by Christian groups. Yet this vilification is ultimately the goal, going back to this idea of control, this time on a broader scale. Non-traditionalist queer families or women having more control over their sexual agency or more often directly conflicts with right-wing Christian rhetoric. So limiting access to learning about these things is an attempt by these groups to force people into patriarchal, monogamous, heterosexual family structures championed by Christian groups. By limiting access to awareness of these things, they feel that they can stop people from feeling or pursuing these different family structures. But it doesn't actually work. It doesn't stop LGBTQ kids or girls from feeling the way that they do. All it does is instill shame and fear in kids. LGBTQ kids feel shame for their developing homosexual feelings, and girls often feel shame at their bodies for developing into something seen as sexually desirable to straight men, or for their menstruation, or for having sexual desires at all, for having opinions outside of what men think they should have. And this is why things like the Don't Say Gay bill are so incredibly harmful, because they remove children's access from having a chance to understand ways to articulate and think about their experiences. They'll still have these feelings, but they won't be able to describe them or understand them. And it will lead to the shameful thoughts or even worse things, possibly to them feeling suicidal or depressed or just feeling like they're wrong. Just as abstinence training prevents kids from understanding sex, leads them to harmful decisions around sex because they're going to have it anyways because they still feel it regardless of if you teach them about it or not. But all of this is why this traditionalist family language is utilized by political right-wing groups, because they know it will push their Christian and conservative bases to rally to causes like the Don't Say Gay bill despite its clear harm, because they see any access to sex and sexuality awareness as an attack on what they view family as. And so this is why you'll see right-wing talk show hosts or politicians say things like this.
But it's, I mean, why? What's the downside? If you're more discerning, and you tell your kid, okay, well, we're not going to watch this movie, and it turns out that the movie was fine and they could have watched it, how are they hurt by that? They've still got a million other things they can watch. It's not going to hurt them. Even if you stop them from watching something that would have been fine. It doesn't cause any damage to them. But you let them watch things that they shouldn't be watching and you make a habit of that, then there is some real damage to that.
It's because they know these messages will resonate with the parents and groups that watch them if you vilifize movies like Turning Red for being anti-family. It all ultimately reinforces the same sense of control, not only on a family level or a personal level, but on a political level as well. And I will say, I do find it incredibly hilarious, and it kind of points out the hypocrisy, by the way, that in the background of this video, Matt Walsh has literally 2 copies of his book that was marketed to kids explicitly to fearmonger about trans people. It's kind of ironic in a very sad way. But that's neither here nor there, and if you want to learn more about that book, I talked about that up here. Should be here. Click that if you want to learn more. There, it's kind of there. And it should be mentioned, I've been discussing this on a more casual level surrounding criticism of a Pixar movie. But as I showed in clips throughout this video, many Christian and right-wing groups will often frame this discussion of the attacks, quote-unquote, on the traditional family and limited sexual understanding in a very binarized good versus evil way.
And listen, Satan doesn't care if you worship him or whatever. He just is concerned that you're not obeying God and serving God. So really, just do what you want to do. And if you do what you want to do, ultimately you're doing what he wants you to do.
By framing everything outside of a traditional norm as fully evil, it allows them to vilify LGBTQ people or sexuality discussions in general as evil and justifiably worth attacking. It's why you see things like the Florida governor's press secretary equating opposing the Don't Say Gay bill to child grooming. This is also what leads to people justifying harmful conversion therapy for LGBTQ people, which, for a further discussion on, I really can't recommend the wonderful Kaylee and Conrad's video about how conversion therapy has been weaponized against the trans community, which also discusses how this conversion therapy gets justified and utilized in general. Even Disney itself, with its desire to be able to sell films to this type of audience, enables this behavior, which we can see clear evidence of after the recent controversy surrounding Disney supporting politicians who created the Don't Say Gay bill led to Pixar animators to reveal that Disney has been censoring LGBTQ content in their movies for years. And all of this feeds into this self-fulfilling and self-perpetuating cycle, considering that it was conservative Christian groups that pushed Disney into these depictions back during the Hays Code in the first place. It's a system that keeps reinforcing white, monogamous, heterosexual, and mostly sexless relationships as natural and normal, and all others as weird, shameful, or wrong. But conversely though, it also speaks to why films like Pixar's Luca resonated with the gay community so much. Despite Luca not being overtly gay, though it may or may not have been at some point given what we now know about Disney's censorship, many queer people, myself included, saw the two fish boys forming a clear relationship resonating with a young gay experience. It was 2 prepubescent kids learning not about sex, but about starting to understand that they may have feelings other than the heterosexual norm.
But how am I gonna know you're okay?
You got me off the island, Luca. I'm okay.
I'm not going to go fully into Luca here, but I'd recommend Rowan Ellis's excellent video for more on that topic and why it was so resonant with the LGBTQ community, despite it not being expressly and overtly gay. But in the end, the discussion and controversy around Turning Red is fascinating because the concerns of family, sexuality, parental control, and puberty are all both parts of the film's narrative and how folks have pushed back against it. The movie itself, which, while not perfect, depicts a healthy way to not only handle the growing sexuality of kids, but models a way for families stuck in this unhealthy cycle of suppressing self-expression and sexual desire to find a way to heal and develop a healthier relationship not only to themselves, but to their own families as well. Alright, that's the main stuff for this video, but I teased a couple announcements at the top of this video and they're all really cool. First off, I just wish to say that within a few weeks, I'm actually going to be going to Star Trek Mission Chicago, the Star Trek convention in Chicago. Honestly, I am so excited for this. It's gonna be my first ever Star Trek specific con that I've ever gone to, which I know, that shocks me too, given how much I love Star Trek. Even better though, I wanted to let you all know that I'm going to be on a panel hosted by the amazing folks from the podcast Women at Warp at the con. At the time of this filming, I don't have the information on the time or the specifics of that panel, but if I do have it by the time this video comes out, all that information should be down here or up here, somewhere on the screen right now. But I share that information with you because if any of you are going to the convention and wish to say hi to me or to see a really cool panel, I'd love to see you there because it will be a fun time with really cool people because the people at Women at Warp are amazing. And I'll also try and hang out afterwards to say hello to folks as best I can in the time that I have during the con because I plan on doing a lot of stuff there. Also, by the way, you should support Women at Warp. It's a great podcast. I adore them. They do really great work, especially if you're a Trekkie. Also, I wish to say, if you see me running around the con, please feel free to come up to me and say hello. I will give you a little forewarning. I might be on the run to get somewhere, and also I do have some level of social anxiety, especially in the age of, you know, pandemic stuff. So you may get me at a moment where my brain goes, ah, people, and I kind of freak out a little bit because I'm just a super awkward human like that. But well, super awkward is normal for me. Anyways, but I would love to at least say hi to you, and possibly more, depending on the moment that you catch me in and the headspace I'm in. But please, please, please don't hesitate to just come up and say hello, and say hi to me, because I would love to meet people. I've been locked in this room for forever, and I would like to actually meet people who watch the stuff that I make. But secondly, though, because I'm going to Mission Chicago, as well as the fact that my next few planned videos, which include, by the way, Sex and Star Trek Part 2, which I'm really excited about. All of these videos I'm planning on being much bigger productions than I typically do for this channel, both filming and editing wise. So my next major video after this one that you're watching right now may be a little bit delayed, again, because of Mission Chicago and because of the higher production value that I'm hoping to put into these videos. Normally, I try to get videos out every other week on this channel outside of like the reviews and live streams and stuff that I do, but between the traveling and the amount of editing that I'm doing for these projects, it's just gonna probably take me a little bit more time. But I do want you to know that it will be worth it. I've already filmed most of Sex and Star Trek Part 2, and it's really cool. In fact, here's a teaser image for you. Doesn't that look awesome? It's gonna be really cool. I'm so excited about it. But I want that video to be of the highest quality. I wanna take my time with it, make sure it's really where I want it to be, because I want this to be a calling card to show like this is the type of thing that I can do. And I also wish to say that that's kind of what I want to start shifting more into the future. I want to show what I can do as a creator and a filmmaker, because I'm hoping to start to learn more about how to pursue some other creative projects that I'll be doing outside of this channel down the line. I'll share more about that when I get to it. It's going to be really cool. I have some exciting stuff to announce hopefully within the next few months, but that's a little bit on the horizon. But because of that, like I said, I'm going to be taking a little bit more time in between my videos to make them really, 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 really good. Don't worry, I'm not stopping them. They're still coming. I just want them to be of a tier that's like, oh, Jessie can do really cool shit. Now, that being said though, don't worry, I'm still gonna be fairly prolific on this channel and my other channel, Jessiegender After Dark. For example, I'm still gonna be doing reviews of every single episode of Star Trek Picard and every single Star Trek show going forward over on that secondary channel, Jessiegender After Dark, which you can find a link to down below. And I'm also still planning to do my live streams outside of when I'm at Mission Chicago. And knowing me, I'll also probably release a few less production heavy videos at some point on this channel, because I'm a workaholic. It's gonna happen. I mean, for example, I'm already planning in my head to do a video about analyzing Star Trek Discovery Season 4 and the pros and cons of that season. I loved it. Like I said, I don't know exactly when that's gonna be coming, but it will probably be coming in the near future. But all that being said, first and foremost, I wish to say to my patrons, thank you so much for allowing me to do this. I would not be able to take time to spend more time on videos like this without patron support. I would still be needing to churn out videos in order to pay my bills, but because my patrons allow me to sort of not have to worry about my bills and support me that way, I wish to just say thank you. You're allowing me to pursue my dreams and skills, and there's a horn honking outside, probably telling me to shut up and finish off the video. But that being said, I will also say, if you do want to support me, but you can't support me over on Patreon, don't forget to subscribe to this channel. I'm also on Nebula as well, if you wish to find me over there with the bunch of other amazing creators that are over on that place. Also, if you do join my Patreon, you can join the community there. You get your name in my videos, and also you can join the Discord that's there. There's so many amazing people over in that Discord. So thank you to everybody for supporting me, this channel, my videos, and all that stuff. And with that all being said, I will see you all in the next video or at Mission Chicago. But until then, I bid you all a wonderful, live long, and prosper, my friends.
Am I wearing a Peacemaker cosplay with glasses underneath the helmet? Yes, I am. Don't think anything of it, because it is time to thank my wonderful patrons. Thank you so much for supporting me doing what I do and being able to buy weird, dumb cosplays like this, and especially an extra special spanking was the word that I almost wanted to say. Extra special thank you to Morgan the Pirate Queen, Joe Herman Holt, Miranda Janelle, Liz Titivy, DJ Samuels, Catherine Lambeth, Ashley Allen, Bo Kiki Yo, Lily Gray, Stephen Kleinard, Jem Shin, Matt Chung, Mary Mello, Randy Thompson, Ellie Gobert, Ish the Mad, Super Desi, D. Ray, Wellington Marcus, Boyd and Mary Beth Earl, Vincent Ellington, G-Man 42, Felicia Toast, Chloe Dollar, Joseph Dewey, Alex Miller, Sylvester Rota, Elizabeth Christensen, James Krivda, Dominic Noble, Barbara Ruski, Jennifer Fuss, Zone 1 Librarian, Jessica Wright, Suck Corgi, Sonia Nero Perdo, Neathra Frotton, Peter Landers, Frangato, Transit Toronto, Sasha M, Lee Arthur Boyd, Mountain Harpy, Celestial Dawn, When Dizzle Bizzle, Pissed and Twisted, Garage, Huh, Stephen Richardson, Melinda Walters, John Weatherby, Meadow Whisper, W, Brandy Edie, Cyber Quaker, Listen the Pagan, Beatrix Pruvis, Alex Owen, Kevin Frintag, Tiffany Danger, Lysa, Sean Piper, Casual Observer, Angie Pugh, Gretchen Badger Flynn, Cause I've got faith of the heart. 4, Maggie the Goblin, Adjusad, Sarah Leslie Hutchkins, Jess Johnson, William Stewart, Sky Skinner, Sarah Lamoureux, Sarah Bystam, Calisis, Eva Kniva, I'm sorry. Melody Ann, Winter's Good, Noble Monster Comics, Nathan Steele, Laura Demereux, Verdix Kai, Jason Knott, Hioresis, Spooky, Heather Sylvia, Troy Stull, Andrew K, Maeve, Polly Mina, Strawberry Pupter, Ashri Inda, Moo Nir Amlani, Emily Umis, Crit Fax, Nikki Gordon Bloomfield, Blade Upton, Michael Godey, Jenny Mabel, Alicia M, Ver, Bella Lugosi, Corey, and Vale Honkanen. Woo! Thank you, every single one of you. I adore you all. Again, patrons, I could not do this without you. You let me do this and be a weird dork and just sing weird voices at the end of every video. Thank you so much, and I just appreciate you supporting me being weird and dumb and silly, and I send you my absolute love going forward. Mwah. Truly, from the bottom of my heart, you are wonderful. And an extra special thank you from me, Scotty Bakula, to A Man Chooses, A Slave Obeys, whose name accidentally got left out of the patron song this month, but you're still awesome.